everyone. Today on Noon, I'll be interviewing a good friend and former colleague, Ed, a dedicated paramedic who has faced unique challenges and triumphed against all odds. Join us as we delve into his extraordinary life experiences. Prepare to be inspired as Ed opens up about the obstacles he has encountered along the way and the resilience that has kept him going. We'll discover how Ed overcame his personal hurdles, including his hunting accident, and emerged stronger than ever, continuing to serve his city as a paramedic. Let's get started. All right, welcome Ed to the 911 Nonsense podcast. Thanks for coming out today. If you could please just give me an introduction of yourself.
My name is Ed Bras, paramedic here in the Albuquerque area. Started my career back in 2001 before 9/11 and have been working ever since. I've done pretty much everything from flight to critical care to in-hospital, pre-hospital, rural, metro, basically TACMED, all of it.
That's really cool. I didn't know that you were working before 9/11. Do you think that affected your career at all?
I think it did for a lot of us that were the pre-9/11 EMTs, because I just kind of think it solidified like a lot of our resolve that this is the career that we want, and being part of something greater than ourselves was really made apparent and very obvious during that time.
That's really cool. Do you think that you feel that it directly impacted you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it just like it really just strengthened the this idea that this is what I'm meant to do. This is my calling. This is my purpose in life. For me anyway, it was a really good start to my career because it gave me the courage to keep going, even though there's some adversities and kind of like the shock and awe of like going from being a kid to now, being in the 911 system and, helping people that were older, more experienced than myself and kind of being that kind of calm in their storm of the worst day of their life.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Have you always wanted to be a paramedic?
Kind of. When I was a little kid, like I always noticed that I always had the luck that I'd just find myself in the middle of some weird situation that was just going crazy. And I was just like looking at all these people, like adults that were just like going absolutely crazy and just like, acting a fool. And I'm just like, what's the problem? Like, I don't see why you guys are acting like this. How about we just kind of start from the basics and do simple things? And, as I got older, that was like, well, I keep finding myself in this situation. Why don't I just get trained on how to deal with it? So I became an EMT, then a medic, and it just kind of fit.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I know you said you've done a lot, but have you ever considered like the fire side of things, or you just strictly EMS?
I did for a little bit, but like before I started EMS, I was doing construction and, I got to do a lot of demo, a lot of construction, worked with, big boys with big toys type of thing. That kind of satisfied that itch enough for me. But, once I got into medicine, that was kind of the bug that bit me the hardest. And I started transitioning away from construction, even though, I was getting paid a lot of really good money and had a lot of really good consistent work, to go and working as an EMT in the in-facility 911 system, which, how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely didn't get an EMS for the money.
No.
That's awesome. Yeah, as far as the medicine thing goes, I agree. I started out as a volunteer firefighter, and then I became a paid firefighter at the department that I was with, and I had to go through my EMT basic class, and as soon as I took that EMT basic class, I was like, oh yeah, the medicine is where it's at. That's where I want to be. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. In all of your years in service, what would you say your like most memorable call has been?
It's really hard to like pick like one thing out of all those calls and all those years. I mean, literally thousands at this point. Mm-hmm. There's a few of them that you just kind of like, you actually finally get the feels, like it kind of goes, you have this like dearth of like emotionless, like, all right, this is just one same thing after, after a while. But, it was one of the ones that kind of sticks out at me. It wasn't even really an EMS call. It was, because I do disaster medicine too with a disaster team. And we had this little lady. It was like we were out there for like floods or something. Like nobody even knew about this. Like it wasn't even on my radar. It wasn't like a big hurricane or whatever. It was just floods ravaged this one area, and we were out there. And this little lady, she was like, I don't know, maybe pushing 90. She lost her husband. They survived the flood itself and were loaded into the rescue boats and stuff, but he ended up, the whole experience made her husband die of a heart attack.
Wow.
And she was in our shelter, and her family was coming to go get her. And we were like trying to like get her ready to, one, for her husband's funeral, because this is like probably 2-3 weeks post disaster. And so we're like, you know what? Let's form a group. We're going to take her out to one of the local barbershops or, hairstylist places and kind of tell them, hey, this is what we got going on. She needed new clothes because she lost everything. And she needed to, get made up to, go bury her husband.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the back of the car with her as we're driving out. And like she had this one little stuffed animal that was like, that was it. Like that was like the only thing she had in the world.
Oh.
And it was just like being there for that part, and then getting her all dolled up and, new clothes and everything, and her family picking her up. Like that really touched me quite a bit, considering that it really was kind of a no big deal deployment compared to some of the others.
Yeah, not a big thing. No, that's really cool that you were there and you were able to help get the resources that she needed in that time. And, a lot of people deal with death in disasters, right? That's why we have these disaster teams. So it's heartwarming to know that they are going out of their way to help with resources for the people that need it like that. Because you hear a lot about like the disasters are happening and there will be no running water in a town. So they'll be taking ice, and all the markets and stuff are raising the price of ice to like $20 a bag just because they can.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. That's so crazy. So how long have you been with the disaster team?
It's kind of hard to give like a real good estimate of that, because like when I was applying, sequestration happened, all the government's shutdown stuff was happening. So I think from 2012, but my first deployment was out to Louisiana in 2016.
Oh, okay.
And then I've been out several times a year ever since.
And would you say that you like that position?
I actually really love it. Like
Yeah.
In the beginning, everybody was saying, well, this isn't a typical DMAT deployment. I don't even know what a quote unquote typical deployment even looks like, because all of them have been different. I've gotten access to a lot of really cool stuff that, non-disaster wise, because they do, like huge events as well, like presidential inaugurations, like in Washington, D.C., the State of the Union addresses and the fireworks. Some people got to go to the Pope's visit, things like that.
Wow.
So, we get like the first, front row seats to all of that as disaster medical workers, which is really cool.
That is so cool. What an experience. And how did you learn about that?
It was something that coming from, like, I was born and raised in California. And so we're masters of disaster in California.
Yeah.
And so, like I heard about these teams kind of in the back of my head, but I never really figured out and sat down how to apply and get onto a team until I came out here. And, here I am.
Would you say that it was a fairly easy process to get on the team?
Oh, absolutely not. It was like 2 years long, and it's like resubmitting paperwork and everything, because it's a federal job. So, there's this typical delay of that, plus it's a part-time per diem type of job. So it's even more of a kind of like the hiring part is on the back burner a little bit more. So. And
when you guys go out, like, is everything covered?
Yeah. Yeah, we do get paid. We get per diem and flights covered. The food, they expect us to go out with like 72 hours worth to be self-sufficient for about 72 hours. And, for the most part, most of us, like, that I've never had to push that limit. It's mostly just been like maybe 24 at most. Sure.
Just a just in case kind of thing. And have you ever been put in a situation with the disaster team that maybe made you feel a little unsafe?
Oh yeah. When we all got deployed to Puerto Rico, there was a lot of security concerns. There was a lot of people kind of testing the waters and kind of seeing, because Puerto Rico, because it was an island, getting stuff there was extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah.
Like things like, oil for your car or for the generators that had been running for the last month, like there was no way to get those on the island. So here we are with a cache of supplies that was guarded by, like different federal law enforcement agencies. But then after a little while, they turned and switched to local contractors, which was like, oh, okay, well, let's make sure we make friends with these
shady,
people.
Yeah.
Which the guys were great, at least out in the area that I was deployed to. Like, they were absolutely wonderful. But, you hear about like other what they call them booze or base of operations, that were getting like some people that were like making up fake IDs to try to say like, oh, so-and-so said that I could have that big box of supplies over there.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's crazy. What a cool adventure too, though, like being in a different place and not really knowing people and having to go out and basically befriend everybody and hope that they all have your best interest in mind while you're trying to have everybody else's best interest in mind. That's really cool. What have you been doing more recently? I know you've gotten into some hobbies lately.
Hobby-wise, I kind of do a lot of, like, a long time ago, a mentor of mine was like, why know a lot about a little when you can know a lot about a lot? Mm-hmm. So, which only gave me free agency to do the hyperfixation thing and go from one hobby to another. But they're all kind of coming together. Like right now, I'm doing beekeeping, and that kind of landed in my lap.
What a cool hobby.
It really is. Like I went from having like 2 hives to now having 23 of my own and helping a commercial beekeeper to kind of get my skills and everything going. And
how much space do you need for 23 hives? That seems like a lot.
Luckily, I'm very lucky because my original mentor kind of let me step into his footprint because he moved out of state. And so I took over his business. I bought him out, and like I have all of his same contracts. So like all my stuff is in an alfalfa field right now out in the east area, mm-hmm. where there's like farmland and stuff like that, and things for them to pollinate and gather nectar and produce honey. For 23 hives, the bees, they'll range like 3 miles to go foraging.
Wow.
So, they're the ones that do all the work for the most part.
All the hard work. You just get to collect the best part, right?
Yeah. And just make sure that they're healthy and so that they're getting the resources they need and everything is kind of moving on the timeline that they have, and the queen is healthy and she's laying eggs. And, each box that you open, each frame of bees that you look at is like a different puzzle. And that's kind of what's really intriguing. Plus the white noise of all the buzzing that's going on around you.
Constantly. Uh-huh.
Like there's something real cathartic about just like, you're just kind of doing your Zen thing. It's really hard to worry about the future or dwell on the past when it's like everything is like right now, because they'll feel you too. Like if you're going too fast, they ain't gonna like it. They'll start buzzing a little bit harder the faster you're going. So, like everything just has to be just so that everybody's happy. Otherwise, you'll probably end up getting stung.
That's crazy.
Happens.
Do you wear the suit when
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Some people, you see those videos on, the social media apps where people just go out and all they'll have on is the hood.
Oh, yeah.
And that's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Especially when you see, how many people are allergic to bees, and mm-hmm. people who are allergic to bees and don't realize it until they're stung by bees.
There is that. Yeah. Luckily, I am not.
Oh, that's good. That'd be a higher risk position for you, I think, if that was the case. That's awesome, dude. So do you feel comfortable talking about any of the bad calls that you had?
Oh, yeah. The only caveat is that I have a pretty significant mental block with a lot of them. Just with the generation that I was brought up in the system was still like we're kind of like accepting that calls affect you, but mm-hmm. we still weren't talking about it.
Yes.
And resiliency was the key. Like, yes, this can affect you, but you need to learn how to deal with it.
Yes.
Which for most of us, it just meant suppress and put it down, put it in a box and then put that in another box and just, then smash it.
Keep it going.
Yeah. So, a lot of those bad calls and stuff, I don't I don't really remember, unfortunately, which is really sad because, I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I'll work like 60 hours a week and not even think twice about it. Like that's a slow week for me. And I'm not remembering 60 hours every week
No.
over the course of the 20-year career. Like that there's kind of a problem there.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. And especially when you're given all the opportunity for overtime, is in a 911 system like there typically is, we work way more than 60 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
And that can be a little much. Is there any call that sticks out in particular when people walk up and they're like, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?
Oh, well, my answer to that question is always human nature.
Human nature. That's a good one.
Like,
I always tell people, the worst thing I've seen is when you pull up next to somebody and they're knuckle deep into their nose, and you're just looking at them and they don't care because they're sitting in their car and you just can't, they won't stop until the green or the light's green, and then they take off. That's funny. It's really funny. Would you say that you have any stories with your partner that you would share, like good times or bad times, even maybe it didn't get along with your partner? Or
well, I mean, I've like with partners that are like that I don't get along with, like I'll try to figure out a way to work with them, because your partner, it's, I don't really like the term work wife, work husband, but it really is that. It's like you guys are trauma bonded and just you go through the ringer with each other. You got to be able to work with each other. And so, trying to find a common ground and stuff like that, I've been, for the most part, pretty successful with them, with ones that weren't my favorite. But, it's, when you get a good partner, like I've heard on some of your other shows, it's like that's gold. It's like you hold on to them for as long as you can.
Yeah, that can make or break your whole shift.
Yeah.
Or your whole year, depending on how long you're with that person.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, I tend to get, most of my time in EMS, I've been training people too. So I guess that I've been unofficially voted by my higher ups that I have a little bit more patience than some of the other FTOs that are out there. So, because I really want everybody to succeed that's on the truck.
Yeah.
If you put in the effort, I'm going to match it. And however long it takes, if we need to stay after and do skills, if we need to do studying, if we need to do, do concepts or A&P, whatever, because part of it's a learning experience for me too.
Yeah.
I've forgotten a lot of stuff because I'm not the smartest tool in the toolbox.
We
but,
just work a little harder.
Yeah. So, some of my partners I've had to work on emotional intelligence a little bit more than others so that they don't set off my psych patient that wanted to fight me before and I de-escalated them and then they walked in and kind of ramped everything back up.
Yeah.
Or, somebody that just wasn't getting certain concepts with, CHF versus COPD, for instance, that we have to stop and take some time and get them, up to par.
And would you say that educating other people has made you a stronger paramedic?
Oh, absolutely. Because it reinforces things. And also, I've pretty much, I learned things on every student that I've gotten, every orientee, because there's things that I have to look up, even still, just like a lot of the little minutia stuff. I can get my way through a call, no problem. But, those little extra details and stuff that I put the extra effort in to get along the way, just makes you a better provider.
Sure. I couldn't wait to teach paramedic students because my preceptors were such huge role models for me when I went through paramedic school, and they kind of picked me because they saw how my attitude was when I did things like the first EJ I ever got in the hospital. I basically ran out, fist pumping and excited because this patient was awake, and you don't usually do EJs on awake patients. And that was super exciting. And they were like, who are you? And when do you start your ambulance rotations? We need your name. We're going to take you. And my paramedic rotations on the ambulance were fantastic. I think I just got really lucky with the two that picked me. They were hilarious. They were so funny, both of them. One of the first overdose calls that we had I got to put a nasal trumpet down, and an NPA. And she was like, cool, throw down a second one. And I was like, what? We can do that? We can put a huge hose down both nostrils? This is the best thing I've ever done in my whole life. So I got to do bilateral NPAs, which was really fun. Did you have any experiences like that?
Well, it's for, my cloud in my career has had, like, some guys, like, I know that they've done like 14, 15 field births. Some people are trauma clouds. Some people are cardiac clouds. I always get the psychs that want to fight. You just have to like start ramping them down, like just kind of de-escalate the situation, and everybody else is ramped up too because they're like, let's get it on. And it's like, no, I don't want to do this today. Like,
let's try not to fight if we don't have to.
Like, I don't want to restrain somebody today. This will be like 3 for 3. Like, I know.
3 for 3. Ooh, you were a psych cloud. Did you ever get the chance to pull out taser barbs?
Oh yeah.
That is one of the most satisfying things for me. I don't know what it is, but putting your fingers down and pulling that barb out is one of the best feelings ever. They're not happy about it, but
oh no, yeah,
usually not.
And sometimes they're still fighting too.
Yeah, no, it's true. Sometimes it's bad when you're rolling up and PD has the spit mask on before you get there. Have you ever gotten assaulted?
Well, yes, like they tried.
They tried.
when you have so much volume in one category, you get pretty good at figuring out like when people are doing the microaggressions pretty quick, and you can kind of catch on that, okay, this is going to be this person I can de-escalate, this person we can't. We need to medicate, or we need to do some type of intervention, or I need to like just have one person distract them. I'll get everybody on the same page and we'll pounce. Like,
sure.
So I've been very fortunate that I'm kind of paranoid in that way that I think grandma's going to swing on me.
Oh yeah. No. Yep. Then those grandmas swing hard too.
So like, a lot of these calls, like they're pretty well handled by the time we actually go hands on. Like everybody's on the same page, or if it gets really crazy, that's, you kind of reevaluate things and try to figure out how that could have gone better. Like I had a student on one call. We got a call as a quote unquote sick person. And, it was family, like this guy just got out of jail and he was jailhouse ripped. And he just wanted to go to sleep. Like, so he overdosed on his melatonin, and his family freaked out and got worried and called us. And they showed us the SI text messages and stuff like that. And, it's like, well, we can't not do anything at this point. And he didn't want to go, which is okay, fine. So called PD early. And it's like, well, this is going to end up escalating. And eventually he decided he was tired of our presence and ended up reaching into his drawer. And it's like, oh God, now we know what's happening here. Yeah. Loaded pistol that he shouldn't have had to begin with. But so, we end up having to wrestle him. And this guy, like, he's yoked. Like, there's an engine company, a rescue, me and my partner and my student, and he's winning. And not only that, but now his family is jumping in because now they see us like attacking him,
right, basically.
So that, was kind of I haven't been surprised like that in a while.
Yeah.
And then, we're calling, the emergency code and everything on the radio, and it took PD a while to get there because they're so understaffed. And, by the time they got there, he was medicated enough that he was like at least slightly more chill. But even still, like that could have gone any number of ways. Yeah,
that's a scary situation. I was fortunate enough throughout my career that I haven't seen a brandished weapon yet. And I don't even know what I would do in a situation like that. Like, were you able to get the gun away from him, or were you able to prevent him from getting the weapon in the first place?
We were able to get him disarmed and then get him on the ground. And then as family was like pouncing on us too, like we were taking care of them enough and kind of kicking the weapon away to where like it would take a couple extra seconds for them all to get to it.
Sure.
My biggest worry was that somebody was going to come from another room with like a shotgun or something.
Yeah, with another weapon. Oof. Yeah, that's that's rough. That's scary. Did you guys debrief after that?
Yeah, kind of. Like it was more just like, thank God this didn't go south.
Sure. Yeah, that could have been bad. I had a partner, and we were in the back of the ambulance, and I don't even remember it. It was some sort of event. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there were a lot of drunk people, and we loaded the patient up, and I told her, like, let's just get out of here. It's getting crazy. You know, people are walking up and smacking the side of the ambulance. Like, let's just go. And she was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to crawl through the window so that I don't have to go outside. Yes, okay, that's perfectly fine. I'm glad one of us can fit. So she's like putting the vehicle into drive and telling me we're not going to be able to move very far because people are walking now in front of the ambulance, like intentionally trying to stop the ambulance.
Oh, wow.
I got to a point, if you see anything that is unsafe, I know it's not great, cops aren't here, run people over if we need to.
Yeah.
You know, if it is to that point, yeah, they will move, and if they don't, they'll regret not moving, you know. So that can be pretty scary. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a person, an EMS provider not too long ago that ended up getting shot by a patient who was having a seizure. And he woke up from his seizure because his wife had called 911 because he was having the seizure. And he woke up, and there's a couple of people in his house that he doesn't recognize. So, yeah, he reached over, pulled the gun out, and shot the EMS provider without realizing that that person was there to help him. And that prompted a lot of, I think, well-needed, education and laws that help EMS providers in situations like that.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that that's the kind of thing is common, but we just get lucky in a lot of the aspects. You know, like when I was down in a rural county, the dispatch centers would send us kind of routinely, it seemed like, to the wrong address to do welfare checks. And, you know, like you see somebody crawling around, you know, up and over a fence or knocking on doors or, you know, shining flashlights in the house to see if there's somebody that's inside that's okay. I mean, what's any normal person going to expect?
Yeah.
Because they weren't the best areas of town either.
No.
You know?
I think it's safe to say that we are, as EMT and EMS providers, put into a lot of unsafe situations. And I think the most of us are aware enough to realize if we're in a situation that we probably shouldn't be in.
Yeah. And hopefully now at least there's a little bit more leeway on, like, they're pushing a little bit harder in some of the local systems that's like, hey, if you guys really feel unsafe, because there's always the whole BSI scene safety thing.
Sure.
But with the caveat that you're going to get sued for abandonment or you're going to get in trouble for, you know, rejecting a call or something like that. I think now finally things are a little bit better where the crews can be like, something's not right. We're going to come back after things have been verified a little bit.
Yeah. So speaking of shootings, I know that you have your own personal experience with a shooting. Can you go ahead and walk me through that?
Yeah. Back in 2013, I decided to go hunting with somebody. And, you know, like, coming from California, like, I always wanted to go hunting. I always loved the woods. I always loved hiking and all the outdoor stuff. But in California, like, hunting is like, oh, you're shooting Bambi. And
poor Bambi.
You know, like, there's a whole stigma behind it, and, you know, it wasn't possible. And then I moved to New Mexico where, you know, outdoors is like the thing. Like, that's what you do. This is part of life. This is, you know, like, you put food in your freezer for the rest of the year doing this, you know, which really intrigued me. And, you know, so I, like, researched it like I usually do, and it's like, all right, let's do this. And
I did not know this was your very first hunting trip.
Yeah, well, it was actually technically my second one.
Okay.
Because on my tag, the first time I went out, I didn't even see a ground squirrel.
Oh, unfortunate.
You know, it's just the way it is. You know, I'm sure if I went now off season, there'd be like hundreds of deer out there.
I'm sure,
you know?
And hundreds of squirrels.
Yeah. So, you know, it was kind of a bus trip, and the guy it was a friend of mine that I went hunting with, he was on the first trip, and he's like, you know, my dad's got a tag, you know, this next week. Why don't you come with us, and then, you know, we'll share the meat and whatever. And it's like, this area, we always get lucky. No big, just come out with us. And it's like, yeah, cool, like.
Second opportunity.
Yeah, because it was like, I still had a great time. I was just hiking around the woods, like, that's kind of my jam. And so we went out, the first day, like, got to track a cow elk. We had a deer tag for that one. Tracked that and, saw a coyote den and like all sorts of like nature. And it was like, I was like in heaven. Like I was having a great time. So, next day started out like, as cliche as it is, like every other day.
Yeah.
And we went and found our little spot that we were going to go hunting at. And we hiked for a little while and, all three of us. And then we're like, well, this kind of sucks because we like went up this little hill. There's this kind of buried pipeline that they had. So the brush was all clear. So it was a nice straight shot, just hiking up this hill. And we're like, well, let's go back to the truck for lunch or breakfast or whatever. We start walking back downhill, all three of us, and then deer comes up. Like, just like we literally like run into the thing. His dad's the one with the tag and the rifle. So he picks up his rifle and like nothing. I figured it was just too close because if you get too close when you have a scope on it, like you're not going to see anything except maybe a flea on the thing's butt.
Sure.
But that was, that was it. So in that chaos, we got separated, and I went back into the brush, and I see the deer, and it's like maybe 25 feet away from me at most. I'm looking at it, it's looking at me, and I was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, hi.
So I'm pretty sure that the guy with the tag is off to my right, and I want you to run that way. So I'm going to go left. And I stepped right from behind a bush that I was putting between me and the deer, because, you see the YouTube videos of some hunter getting his butt kicked by a deer because they can do that. Step from behind a bush, and I hear this pop. And it's like, and I feel like kind of in my stomach area that's like somebody took like one of those like gravel pieces and just like threw it at me. And it was like, I didn't feel anything other than that. It was just like, what was that? That's weird. And I'm like, something is starting to hurt. No, I did not just get shot. Like this is not happening. And it's like, oh, this is really starting to hurt now. Oh, geez. And his dad had a 270. And I'm like, I have the ballistics in my head, like just like the trajectory where it went in and where I feel the pain, and like, okay, what's in between those two areas? And it's like, and I'm just like, I'm gonna die right here, because we're like out in the middle of nowhere. And so I'm like, so I call out that I got shot, and it's really starting to hurt. And
how much time would you say was processed between the time that you realized that you got shot and the time you called out?
I would probably say, realistically, probably about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. That's all it took.
Yeah. Because it really, like, you see in the movies, like somebody gets shot, they just drop because, the little tiny half-ounce little slug is enough to drop a grown man, because that's the way Hollywood works. So it doesn't really work that way. Like, if I was in an actual situation, like, I probably could have closed some distance and hurt somebody that was shooting me, like, it does not drop you right away. And you don't die right away either, it takes a while for you to bleed out. So I went and I'm like, okay, like, I need to stay calm, because every heartbeat counts. Because if I'm bleeding out, that's, so many mils of blood that I'm losing, and I have to get to the hospital within like an hour, that golden hour. So, I call out, and, my friend comes up first, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? What? Well, you shot me? Well, you just had a 9mm. Okay, I can do this.
My God, you are being so calm about the whole thing. I guess it's good that you had that prior training to know, like, to not raise your heart rate.
Yeah, like it was like, I need to, like, this is not the time to be the nice guy. This is the time to make stuff happen.
But then you also had the patience not to slug the guy when he walked up saying, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, when you're dying, like, your priorities kind of change.
Yeah,
like,
that's understandable.
like I'll get you on the back end, but
Sure.
for right now, I need you to get the truck up here.
Yes. That makes sense. So you were telling him he needs to get the truck.
Yeah. So, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna lie right here for a little while. Like, and like his dad walks up and he's like, what the heck happened? And like, he's like, I shot him. And like his dad literally does like the Homer and Bart Simpson thing. He's like, you're what? And like, steps over me and is like, you, and it's like, hey guys, can we have this family moment later? Like the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
So we get me loaded up into the truck and we start hauling butt down the road, and as bumpy as Gibson or Central would be. And
yes.
And we coordinate getting the helicopters landed in the Follies, and just by sheer luck, apparently according to the sheriff, they just put a cell tower in that area months before. Otherwise it was a dead zone.
Oof.
So we got EMS called and on the way, and I had a paramedic on scene.
Oh, that's good.
And we do the kind of pull and shut down the highway type of thing once we run into the volleys, and they start pulling me out of the truck, and start back in the day with PHTLS, you have any type of hole to the center, you get a C-collar and you get backboard and everything else, and it's like at that point we had changed things maybe for 5 years. So I turned into one of those patients. They tried throwing a collar on me, and I was like, nope, we are not doing this, guys. And they're like, whoa. And I'm like, no, this is old medicine. Like, I'll come back and teach you the right way, but like for right now, this is not what we're doing. And they're like, well, can you at least get on the backboard so we can get you out of the truck? I'm like, all right, cool. And then they're like, well, can you take off, because I had all my hunting gear and everything on, and like, can you take it? Can you move or whatever? And at this point, like, everything hurt because my belly was filling with blood. And I'm like, you know what? Just cut it off. I know you guys want to, just cut it off. It's because they all were standing over me with their scissors. And
trauma naked, baby, trauma naked.
And it was funny too, because it was like, so it's like zip, they got me completely out within like no time, looked for other holes and stuff like that. And then I remember the look on their faces, because it's like, now what? And I'm like, guys, it's like, I'm a trauma patient, I'm bleeding out, and it's 30 degrees. How about we get me in the truck? Yeah. Oh, good idea. So like we loaded me up to the truck, and, I was still cognizant the whole time. Like all the way to, the whole thing. Because I'm like, I'm going to stay awake this whole time. Like that's, I just need to get to the hospital. And I didn't know that I was really in trouble until the medics, did the IV, and he was trying to put the tape on, but it wasn't sticking because my skin was all diaphoretic at that point. And I'm like, oh, this is what shock feels like. Didn't see that coming. Like, because I'm like, how does this whole process work? Like, this is a good case study for myself, like what it feels like to be a trauma patient and everything. So once he finally pushed the fentanyl to kind of cut the pain down, I was like, okay, I can survive. This is all right. Like, we'll be all right. And then we took off, and, PHI landed and took me to the trauma hospital that was in the area. And, I remember just like thinking like, all right, like once I got in the helicopters, like I'm in God's hands now. Like, I know that like I have the best care from here to the hospital. Like, I'm going to level 1 that's in the area. Like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I'm just going to enjoy the flight.
Sure. Because that's what normal people do. Yes, Ed, yes. Jeez.
So,
I'm glad we can laugh about it now.
Oh, I was laughing about it in the hospital.
I'm sure you were. But I'm glad that we can laugh about it now together, sitting down at the table. So did you enjoy the flight?
Yeah, the flight was very nice.
Oh, good.
And I know that it was a late call for that poor flight crew too, which I apologized for. And I'm like, but I was still like, hey, what are my vital signs?
Yeah.
How am I doing?
How am I really doing?
He's like, no, you're fine. Your vital signs are okay. I was like, okay, cool. So went down to trauma 1, and I remember just kind of like looking over at the gurney, because I was like on my side, because that was just the most comfortable place I could be. And it was like, oh, okay, I've run into that resident before. Like, I'll be all right. I didn't have any problems with them.
Judging everybody as
absolutely.
As you're
absolutely.
rolling in,
it's
making
like,
sure you know and recognize them.
Do I need to stay awake? And the last thing I kind of remember as I was fading out was just that, the nurse called out. It was like blood pressure 60 over, and then everything went black.
Oh.
And then kind of everything came back when we were running down the hall to surgery, which apparently I got like 6 units of blood just there. And reading the notes in the surgical report and everything, I went into respiratory arrest. Like, they literally got me there.
Wow.
Exactly in time to resuscitate me and get everything that they needed to go in and stop the bleeding. And from there, it was kind of spotty because, like, I got septic and pneumonia and like all the bad stuff.
You had the whole gamut of stuff
absolutely.
Afterwards. Wow. I think it's easy for us to forget as providers too, the long term, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, I was in the ICU for like 10 days or something like that.
Wow.
They did 9 surgeries to
9 surgeries?
Yeah, to put me back together and, wash me out and all that stuff. And, there was being on the ventilator for that long and stuff like that. Like, I'd come in and out, and like, I remember like, waking up, and it's like, the weird thing is that, one thing that I was not aware of that at the time that I appreciate now is that not nearly enough providers have been patients. Because when you have the patient experience, it absolutely changes the way you do medicine. Where when I was waking up, like, I was fighting the entire time. Like, they restrained me because I was one of those patients. Like, I had bruises on my wrist for a long time because I was fighting the restraints so hard, because I knew that there were those crummy little like posy restraint things. I'm like, I can break through these, no problem. Like, like, I'd wake up and it's like, I need to get to my wife. Like, I need to tell her that I'm okay. Like, I knew I was intubated. I knew that I was in the hospital. Like, I was completely mentally, cognitively aware. And it's just, I just need to tell my wife I'm okay. My wife at the time. And so hearing the other side of the story, like, I was kicking, I was bucking the tube, I was clamping down on it, like, I was biting it. Like, it was a whole show.
And how long was it before your wife found out?
I called her from like when we were going to meet, like when we were on the way to meet.
Okay,
like, so she knew something was up.
She knew, okay.
Yeah. And then from there, like, she started, making all the other phone calls and everything that, even before I got to the hospital, like, all my family in California knew and everything. So, but yeah, so I got better. I got a little bit better after that.
A little bit better.
And then, the ICU psychosis, that's what they called it. I know what I saw. That kicked in.
It was all the good drugs, right?
Well, at that point, it was the lack of good drugs.
True.
So, true. That was a whole nother thing, because like, like I'd never done drugs, like street drugs or anything like that. Like, I still haven't. I just didn't interest me. I had a lot of other cool stuff to do. So I went from like completely normal to now full blown like hallucinations with like tactile, sensory, like everything. Like, it was my world was completely different. And the thing is, like, that was always one of my biggest fears, because I had my best friend growing up. He ended up getting bipolar schizophrenic, and going through that, and it was just the whole idea of that kind of thing terrified me to no end. Like, to not be in control of your mind was absolutely terrifying, and now that was it. And of course, nobody believes you. I'm like, no, my room was on fire. Like, and nobody's believing you. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, that's intense, man.
And the funny thing was, like, they're like, they sent the doctor in to try to convince me, because like, that's gonna work. And I'm like, dude, I am conscious, I'm alert, I'm oriented, I know where I am, I know what I saw. And he just kind of like looks at me and like kind of like, and then walks away.
Were you still in restraints at that point, or no?
I was about ready to, because like when I thought my room was on fire, I was I still had I was open.
Yeah.
My whole abdomen was like completely open. It was just like a tegaderm, like keeping everything inside. And I was just like taking station of like what I had, and it's like, all right, so I undid my G tube, tucked that into my gown, and it was like, all right, I got a Foley, don't want that thing to like rip out. And so I grabbed that, and it was like grab that.
Getting
and then,
yourself ready to get up and go.
And then I was like popping off all my EKG stuff. Like I was going to go talk to the charge nurse for letting my room catch on fire.
Yeah.
And so that negotiation ended up not going well.
I'm sure it didn't.
They got security to come in and explain to me that nothing was going on. So I'm like, fine.
Went all the way up to security.
You win this round.
That's crazy, dude. I'm so sorry that you went through that experience. Again, though, I'm glad that you're able to, joke about it and talk about it so openly.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. Being appreciative of life. More than I was, because I've had my bouts of depression pretty significant in the past, and so and things like having this like imposter syndrome thing where it's like I'm not good enough to do this job or whatever, and it's like what's the worst that can happen? So
now going forward, that's your attitude.
Yeah, it really is. And like within 9 months of getting out of the hospital, I always wanted to do SWAT and TAC med. I had that job. I always wanted to fly. I had that job. It just, once you're not afraid to like push forward and just like get rejected, like sky's the limits. Like you can do anything at that point, because the worst thing they can say is no. And then no is a fantastic starting point. It's like, cool, no, but why? It's like, well, you don't have enough experience, so you get more experience, or you don't have this cert, so you get that cert, like what you need to do to start paving your path at that point.
Yeah.
And you don't fear it either. That's
really cool. So how do you feel about, like, what is your definition of PTSD?
PTSD is just basically, to me at least, is physiologically reliving past traumas.
And would you say that you suffer from that?
In my own ways, yes. I don't think it's necessarily in the textbook ways, because I had such a mental block for most of my career that I would literally forget whole calls, whole days, just they didn't deserve space in my brain, so they were just gone.
So would you consider that a form of like repression or suppression?
Yeah. To that aspect, yeah. But the more you work on things and kind of sift out stuff in therapy and stuff like that, you kind of like, well, maybe that is kind of a problem, because before it was armor.
Yeah. Yes. For many years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was that armor. If you could start in EMS all over again, would you?
No, because there's so many other traumas that you can live through. Like, why relive through all this stuff? Like, it's like been there, done that, got the t-shirt, we're good. Like, I'm completely content, There's other paths and stuff like that you can do that, it's not going to be without adversity.
Sure. It's not always greener on the other side.
No. Did everything that I've gone through so far shape the way that I do everything now? Hell yeah, absolutely. But I want a new episode.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Is there any advice that you would give to your younger self?
I'd probably tell my younger self that, you're good enough now. Don't wait until you feel ready to do anything. There's always that feeling of discomfort is sometimes a good thing, because it makes you get out of your comfort zone, and getting out of your comfort zone makes you study harder for something that you want, or work a little bit harder at a job that's not that great, but it's a stepping stone, and seize every opportunity that you can. Because if you're constantly improving yourself, improving your skills, and giving yourself a good reputation as a hard worker, just showing up has been like 90% of the luck that I've had in my career. And the only thing was that earlier on in my career, I didn't think I was good enough to do flight tactical. I wasn't smart enough to do this or that. Just do it and figure it out later.
No, that's great. I know you have to get to work, so I'm gonna cut us a little bit early, but I really appreciate you coming out today, and I want to give you the opportunity, if you have any charities or any groups that you want to talk about, that you would like to promote.
There's a lot of groups that are out there that we all utilize for the most part. Mary Baca's groups, Allies for First Responders, the PSPG folks, basically there's a lot of resources that are out there for the first responder community. And I really think that it's important that we all kind of seek those opportunities that we have in this area, because, I've been through therapy, multiple therapists over the course of my career. And there's a stark difference between ones that have dealt with EMS and are trained to deal with EMS and traumas and stuff like that, and the normal layperson that is a therapist. Not that there's anything wrong with them. They absolutely, they have their certs, they have their education and everything, but they need to be able to walk through that dark humor with us and realize that, no, this is not a suicidal ideation, or no, we're not really that crazy. We're just saying this kind of stuff to vent, because that's the only way that we can get this out, is in that gallows humor type of way.
Yeah, that all of us have.
Yeah, and it's like, you can't go through this and not have it.
Yes.
It's really, you just can't. And a lot of those folks that are in those groups, they have a lot of experience with us. They know how to deal with us. It's the ones that I've had interactions with are absolutely awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming out today, Ed. I really enjoyed your stories. They were great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for listening. Before we wrap up, we have a few important announcements to share with you. Firstly, we're excited to announce the launch of our brand new 911 Nonsense Facebook group page. It's a community where everyone can go to connect, share ideas, discuss topics from the show, and get all of the most recent updates about the podcast. We'd love to have you join us and be part of the conversation. Next, we want to ask you to rate and review our podcast on your preferred platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach a wider audience. By rating and reviewing the show, you'll be supporting us in a big way and helping others discover 911 Nonsense. If you enjoy what we do and would like to support the podcast even further, we have a few options available. You can visit samspursuit.com to find the links to our 911 Nonsense merch page and our recently released Noon gear page. Every contribution, no matter the size, goes a long way in helping us continue to better the podcast. We know that not everyone is comfortable being on the podcast, but we still want to hear your stories and experiences. If you have a compelling story and would like to share it to be read by me in a future episode, please reach out to us via email at 911nonsense@gmail.com or through our website's contact section. If you choose to be anonymous, we'll make sure to respect your privacy while sharing your story in a way that resonates with our audience. Thank you again for tuning in. We truly appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more engaging content in the future. See you next week.